Hello and welcome to another very special edition of the Rigby Campfire Podcast. I'm Simon Barr, Head of Communications for Rigby, and I'm being driven in the very sexy Rigby Land Rover by none other than himself, Marc Newton, the MD. Marc, where are we headed to?
So Barzi, we're headed from my home in Sussex, 25 minutes down the road here to Portsmouth Historic Dockyards, which is home to HMS Victory, HMS Warrior, both national treasures, where we will be hosting our 250th celebrations in 2 weeks today.
2 weeks today, lots to get done, and there are a few very special suppers in Nelson's cabin in the run-up to the big night itself, I understand.
There are, yeah. There's a hell of a lot to do in not much time. We've been working on this now, the initial idea 3 years ago, you and I in a hotel room at one of the shows in America, and then 2 years approximately, we've got Monty, our ops director, working on this, putting all the nuts and bolts together to make this the most amazing event and the most amazing celebration of a British gunmaker perhaps ever.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very ambitious plan, and let's talk about the kind of genesis moment of how we came up with the idea. So people won't know this, but Marc and I tend to share a room, buddy up as roommates at trade shows, because we find, as we're jet lagged flying over from Europe, the opportunity to spend those otherwise dead hours when you wake up at 2 a.m. to actually do something constructive. We have some of our most productive ideas, don't we, when we wake up earlier than everybody else. And 3 years ago, we were kind of very aware of the magnitude of a 250th anniversary for Britain's oldest gunmaker, and what could we do that would befit such an occasion. It couldn't just be a big dinner in a livery hall in London. It needed to be something more, something that felt much more Rigby. So how did the HMS Victory idea come up?
So Simon and I have always talked about if we ever made it in life, and
very true.
Yeah,
we're not quite there yet.
Not quite there yet. But if we ever made it in life, we would have a two-person banquet in Nelson's cabin, which is, it's hallowed ground. It's sacred. That place. It is very, very special, especially for any British person. We'd have a two-person banquet in there with Michelin star food, with amazing wines, and we would toast our success, and it's become a silly
It sort of all started from Master and Commander.
It started from Master and Commander.
A film that both you and I hold very dear to our hearts.
And a film that's only got better in the last 20-25 years since it came out.
It improves with age. It was a fine vintage film, that one.
It does, yeah.
Russell Crowe playing Captain Jack Aubrey. It's absolutely phenomenal. And yeah, that idea of sitting in Nelson's cabin and having a two-person meal has always been in the back of our minds. And then we actually thought, wouldn't it be better to share that with some of Rigby's most fine customers instead of us, who they've all made it in life, and we can just ride on their coattails or something like that.
Well, it's interesting. So Simon rolls over, and I said this, I think, on an earlier podcast, in a separate bed, to just make that clear on the podcast here, but Simon rolls over.
We're both happily married.
And says, what do you think about HMS Victory for the 250th? The whole pipe dream thing. And I said, come on, look, it's a wonderful idea, but let's get serious. And Simon then sort of came up with, a few sentences on this, and it just really took off from there. And in over 2 hours, we'd written the bones of the script of what we're going to try and do in 2 weeks' time. And the sort of cherry on the cake was when we looked up the year that Victory was ordered. Happened to be 1758, the same year that John Rigby was born, and the same year that Admiral Lord Nelson, Britain's great national hero, was also born. So there's all this wonderful synergy. I think what's so special about Victory as well is, it is a time capsule. They've maintained it in a state of readiness that it would have been before the Battle of Trafalgar, the eve of the Battle of Trafalgar, the greatest sea battle in modern human history, I suppose. So when you step aboard, it's like a time machine. You are instantly transported back 2.5 centuries to the sounds, the sights, the smells, the feeling, the vibe.
And what's amazing is it was made by hand out of wood and metal, which is very much the same as the gun-making process today, unchanged for a quarter of a millennia, which is phenomenal. So to have guests walking back in time to see the origins of Rigby, I think is very, very special indeed.
Yes, and these things, national treasures like HMS Victory, like Rigby, and others like them, they need investment. They need passion. They need people fighting for them in order for them to be there for future generations to see and to learn from and to love. So it's interesting that Rigby is coming to the end of this chapter of its life, where we've relaunched the resurrection of Rigby's back in the UK. HMS Victory is now undergoing its own 10-year project of restoration.
40 million pounds, I believe.
40 million pounds they're spending on it to completely refit it, and it presents us with a very interesting once-in-a-lifetime opportunity where you get to see the ship sort of half pulled about, so you can see the guts of it, how it's actually built underneath the skin. And that is something very special. And watching the shipwrights using chisels and mallets, which are identical to the tools that we use for making rifles and shotguns at Rigby's. Again, there's just so much synergy between the two, these two national icons. And
Rigby has always been, and to this day, an innovator, someone that embraces technological advancement. And at the time, HMS Victory, and of course we step back into it now, the beams are very low and it feels as analog as you could possibly get, but it was at the time the height of technology. It was the height of naval superpower.
Yes.
And Rigby at the time was producing things that were cutting edge technology.
Definitely. I mean, if you look at the Rising Bite double rifle and shotgun, and then the partnership with Mauser, you look at those Mauser rifles 120 years ago, they were positively futuristic. They were the Blaser R8 of their day, and it completely changed big game hunting, frankly, overnight, with the introduction of that action and calibers like the 350 and the 416 from Rigby's. And the other thing that's important to mention is that it must have taken some serious balls to get onto one of those wooden ships and sail around the world, not just sail around the world, but fight wars on the open ocean with nothing more than a compass and the sun and the stars to steer by. And
and some beer and some port.
And lots of grog. And the synergy between, Britain, a seafaring nation, those sailors on HMS Victory and HMS Warrior for that matter, and our customers at Rigby's. You look at, generally speaking, most of our customers are, very entrepreneurial types. They've got a thirst for adventure. I think Rigby is the hunter's gunmaker, the adventurer's gunmaker, and I see it time and again. Customers who, perhaps they work in offices in America, growing their business, but they look forward to that safari once a year where they get to unplug and go and sort of test themselves on the Dark Continent. So again, there's just so much synergy between all three of these things.
Yeah, and two best of British icons. I mean, HMS Victory is still a flagship of the Royal Navy.
It is, yes.
And it is the oldest flagship in the world. And I think something so special that represents so much to Great Britain, and as Britain's oldest gunmaker, I think it's very special that we're able to celebrate the 250th on something and work it around HMS Victory. I think it's very special. Tell me now, I understand that the creativeness in your gun making got the better of you, and as part of the restoration project they're stripping out some of the old oak timbers, some of which is riddled with worm and age and is warped and so on, but there is some timber, of course it all needs to come out in order for it to be refurbished. You managed to get hold of some of this. What are you going to do with it?
Yeah, so we've got some pretty exciting secret projects, but I can't say too much just yet, but we will be incorporating some of that wood into Rigby firearms, which will link these two British icons together forever.
Phenomenal.
It's so special. And do you know something? I think, Britain, we are so good at, for all the history we have, and these isles have been punching above their weight for 500 years in terms of innovation, discovery, all of those sorts of things, scientific marvel. But we are, as British people, very good at sort of riding ourselves down. But when you actually step back and look at what we're going to do in 2 weeks, companies like Rigby, HMS Victory, Spitfires, all these things, Britain is a seriously cool place. And it was, I think, Tony Blair in the late 90s, the Prime Minister at the time, who came in and they coined the phrase Cool Britannia, not Rule Britannia, Cool Britannia, the Spice Girls and Oasis and those things. And I think this is another example of Cool Britannia, what we're going to do in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, it's very special. We've got some extremely Everybody that's coming is amazing and has supported Rigby through its journey, but we've got some very special people coming from all over the world to celebrate with us, and really it's a celebration for the UK, the celebration for British engineering, British manufacture, British export today.
Yeah.
So many of your firearms exported overseas. It's something that Great Britain should be very proud of. Extremely proud of.
And I'm talking with you last night about speeches and things, and standing up on the known as the poop deck on HMS Victory at the back of the ship there, looking out over 250 guests, just taking a moment to absorb that, because almost 12 years ago, Rigby in the UK was nothing more than an idea in my head, support from Michael Luca and the guys in Germany, and a box of papers in my car. And then to be there with all of these amazing people who have all played their part, and of course we'd love to have everyone there, but we'd need 100,000 people at this this 250th, and we just can't fit everyone in, unfortunately. To be able to celebrate with us, not as a group of individuals, but as one unified Rigby family, is something which I think will be the highlight of my career, frankly.
Yeah, and you and I have worked very closely together over the last 11 years to create that narrative around Rigby, about what it means to be a Rigby customer, whether it be a baseball cap, even a subscriber to a newsletter, or a like on a social media page. They're all part of that same group of people that really love the story that we've been telling.
Totally.
And we've been very, very lucky to be able to tell that same story for 11 years now, and I think the volume and velocity of those messages that we've been very consistent with has really landed now.
It has. It sort of compounds over the time as well. And I think the thing that's important to mention here, I see it all the time with the team at Rigby's, I get the same reaction from them, or see and feel the same reaction, whether someone's walked in and bought 5 Rising Bite orders from us, which is something, of course, very, very special, but the same sort of level of enthusiasm and passion as somebody coming in and having a tour. Perhaps they buy a baseball cap, perhaps buying a Rigby at this time in their life is perhaps beyond their means, but then they go away and they write on African hunting forums, for example, about just how well they were looked after, how passionate the team were, showing them around. And when we see things like that, and the team see things like this, they're just as fired up as if they'd sold 5 Rising
Very
Bites.
motivating.
Extremely motivating.
There's a lot of love out there for Rigby now. Rigby is a massive name. The proprietary cartridges, 416, 275, there's been some cartridges, and there's some romance. Some of the very famous Rigby hunters have really helped that, and that's something that we've embraced as a brand and communicated that. There's a romance to it. That sort of glory era of Africa has certainly helped, but I think we're writing new parts of the Rigby story now. This 250th is a really important part of Rigby's legacy.
Absolutely.
And the link to HMS Victory, I think, it's really fabulous. What a lovely thing to be able to communicate.
Yeah.
And mate, we get the opportunity to go and have dinner in Nelson's cabin finally.
I'm not sure we've made it yet, but it will certainly be.
We can watch other people that have made it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we're actually pulling into Portsmouth now, so it's probably a good time to wrap this up and then pick up the mics again.
So Mark, we're here aboard HMS Warrior. We've just done a dry walkthrough of what we're going to be doing in 2 weeks' time today. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling 50% my inner schoolboy who came down here 30 years ago and looked around and just completely fell in love with the place. It is, it's a living, breathing museum, transported back 250 years, 150 years to here, mixed with grown-up Mark, the other 50%, who is the CEO of Rigby's, needs to deliver, who is, probably a little bit terrified, I suppose, but I'm very confident because we have, a wonderful team, and I'm sure we're going to knock this out of the ballpark.
And so we're sat on board one of the tables at the huge banquet, which is being put on for everybody. This is the table you're sitting at, isn't it?
This is Treetops table, so we've named all of the tables, but I think that's just so much more personal. So we've got the Kuman table, the Dockyard table, the 416 Rigby table.
Perfect.
And this is Treetops table, which is named after Jim Corbett's famous book, The Place in Kenya, and our home just up the road here. We won't move the camera around and show the space because it's going to be a big surprise.
We've just been debating whether we should show anything now wider of where we are, and I don't think we should. I think we need to keep it as a real surprise for everybody.
This is like sitting on a movie set, it's.
You know what? I bet it's been used for movies.
I'm sure it has been. I'm sure there is not a single square inch that doesn't look period to 1860 Victorian Britain.
Look at the rivets. Look at the timber.
Yeah.
Look at the rope.
Yeah. No, it's amazing.
It is amazing, and of course the guns sitting next to us.
24 guns. You know, I've got in trouble more than once down here when I've referred to them as cannon. Apparently, when you put a cannon on the ship, it becomes a gun. So the 24 big ass guns on this ship, and between each of them are the original crew tables where the crew would have eaten. They would have slept above here. They would have worked.
You can see the hooks for the hammocks.
You can see the hooks for the hammocks, and you think there were like several hundred people on this deck, and we're going to be squeezing in 250.
The smell.
Yeah,
we know what the workshop smells like in Rigby.
Yeah, it's going to be like like that, but worse. But I think on the dinner, to have 250 people aboard will be very, very special. And whilst we have a list of 100,000 people we would love to invite to this, we are limited by the fact that this is a floating museum ship. We're only allowed to have 250 people here on these small tables, and it's going to be pretty cozy. And the sort of food we're serving will also be. It's not going to be frou-frou Michelin star restaurant food. It's going to be hearty food done extremely well,
but kind of suit the period.
That suits the period, yeah. And we wanted to create a family atmosphere. So there'll be vegetables to share out. Will be the dessert that comes out will be cut by a Rigby member of staff and handed out. And I think the sharing of food is sort of something which brings people together in a very big way.
Breaking bread.
And Rigby's is all about breaking down barriers, keeping things real, family, and the dinner will be very much a representation of that.
Yeah, I mean, I've got goosebumps sitting here.
Same. I can't quite believe we are 2 weeks away from this event.
Well, and a little idea seeded 3 years ago has grown arms and legs, hasn't it?
Absolutely.
250 of them, in fact.
Yeah.
And I can't stress what a great job Monty, Sophie and the wider team have done in putting all of this together. Just the logistics of trying to get everybody organised. And we have got people coming from all four corners of the globe.
Yeah.
And frankly, just organising people's itineraries has been an undertaking, let alone pulling off the very, very ambitious evening that we've planned here.
Because it's not just a dinner, this is theatre. Like what we're planning is theatre. And Monty's military sort of background, I think, has been invaluable with that, making sure that the military bands are where we need them to be at the right time, the cannons firing, the pikemen and musketeers, the fireworks display. I don't want to say any more because Monty will be listening to this and told me not to give away all of the secrets and surprises, but it's like I'm just like bursting.
It always happens when you and Simon get together.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we want to.
And we promised as well not to add anything else to the evening as we walk around today.
Yeah. So every time I say to Monty, I've had an idea, I can just hear his heart hit the floor. He rolls his eyes and says,
hang on. Every time I tell you I've had an idea, what's your immediate response?
That we're already committed and it's going to cost us 10 grand. And I've got an invoice. It's like that is the norm.
Mark, I've had a good idea.
Yeah, and we're fully committed. But no, so yeah, the team have been amazing, continue to be amazing. All the guys at the workshop, Jamie looking after those guys, Tony, preparing everything with Steve in the office. It's dozens and dozens of people have been working tirelessly for.
Isn't that the Rigby way? It's about the people. It is about the people, and this evening or this whole week long of celebrations is about the people putting something very special together that befits Rigby's 250th.
Yeah.
So it's spectacular.
Looking forward to it.
I can't wait.
Same. I think I'm going to lock myself in a dark room for a month afterwards and just sort of. I can't believe it. I don't think we'll know what to do with ourselves after this. It's been the centre of our lives for so long now as we plan it. But everything we do at Rigby's is about delivering it to the best of our capabilities, and that's why we put so much time and effort and passion into it.
And amazingly, you're gunmakers. You're not event planners. So the ambition of this event probably surpasses your capability as an event planner. So you've all had to learn very quickly how to pull something together.
Absolutely. So we've said to everyone, please do bear with us because we are gun makers first and foremost, not event planners. But no, I think this is, frankly, I think we're going to completely rewrite the book on how you market and celebrate a British gunmaker. Yeah. No one's ever done anything like this before, and I don't know what you could do to surpass this.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, it's a pretty special way of celebrating Britain's oldest gunmaker making a quarter of a millennia.
I want people to come in and to look around and just be like speechless. I've been in here 100 times through all this planning, and every time I'm still like, bloody hell, I can't believe we get to have this dinner here.
Yeah, it's going to be very special.
Yeah.
I guess that's it. We can wrap up and get everybody G'd up and excited.
Absolutely.
Good, well, best of luck with it.
Well, you're the best of luck to you. You're going to have to help Monty pull this off for me.
I know.
I've just got to turn up and say the right words at the speeches. So that's my focus now, and to host. So, no, I think, it's. I know somewhere up above us now, John Rigby, all the Rigby family, and who've come before, Admiral Lord Nelson, Jim Corbett, one or two others might be pulling the strings to make sure it goes very well.
Yeah, perfect. Good. Well, let's welcome everybody in a couple of weeks' time. I'm sure there'll be plenty of media. That's my job. To anybody that isn't able to come on the evening, we'll make sure that we're going to produce a film, and there'll be lots of press coverage on this all over the world in multiple different places. So if you're lucky enough to come, you'll experience it in first person. But for those that aren't able to come along due to the numbers that we're able to accommodate, then there'll be plenty of opportunity to catch up with exactly what went on the night.
Absolutely. I mean, we could have had 50 nights doing this, and we still couldn't have got the entire global Rigby family along. I've probably been dead at the end of it with the stress of organising it, but no, I think we'll make sure that video gets out so people wherever you are in the world can enjoy in the celebration of our Rigbys.
Perfect.